Well, I think Lexi's point about the news being quite reactive right now is quite poignant, because what we saw on Friday was CPI data from the United States, which was really atrocious for stock markets in many respects, because it pushes the decision back onto the Fed, and that decision should be, we don't know what it will be, but it should be further tightening or some sort of announcement of tightening, or further tapering, and looking into interest rate hikes. Now, because of that, I'm really interested in the NASDAQ most specifically, because I think the NASDAQ is the one that's likely to suffer the most. And it is kind of against my DNA to go short on the NASDAQ, but I think that it might be the one time that I'm comfortable to do that. And if we look at what's happened with the data, the data kind of supports it, because when we look down here, this is what we had with the NASDAQ. We had a rise to the upside, we had a break, and it was quite a decent break to the downside. And then last week we had a push up. Now, what that looks like with the data is this. In actual fact, let's look at this first. You can see on the 36-month, 11%, so it's in bearish territory. We see on the 18-month, 11% bearish territory. On the 6-month, 1%, so very, very bearish on the NASDAQ. Now, if we look at what happened with the buyers and sellers from last week, so this is the index down near the lows here, which is suggesting weakness from the COT data. And if we look what happened, we've had a rise in the selling pressure here, the red line here, a rise in the selling pressure. And that rise in the selling pressure is suggesting that the bears are starting to stack up. And last week we had just a dip down in that selling pressure, so we had some of those bears effectively taking their positions out the market, or less sell positions in the market from last week. Now, that would look on the face of it as quite a bullish signal. However, when you look at what happened with the buyers have been dropping as well. So this suggests that the move to the upside that we saw last week is more of a pullback, if you like, or a throwback, depends on your terminology. But it suggests that the trend is starting to the downside, and we have a little bounce. So it suggests that last week was more of a bounce than a turnaround in sentiment, and we continue to go higher. Now, the Santa rally is a big thing, and one of the reasons that we do get a Santa rally is that we get fund managers at the end of, this time of year, they've got to massage their numbers a little bit. So they end up getting into the market to try and buy the best quality stocks that they can. And it ends up, having a bullish effect on the market as they do that. So they can go back to their clients and say, what a brilliant year we've had. So we've had that. And I wonder whether last week's numbers, coming in, I think it was 6.7% CPI or inflation data. And because it was in line, it might have been 6.7, 6.8, because it was in line with what was expected, the market pushes up. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me at all, because it's still a number which means that the price of goods is way overvalued. They're too high. So regardless of whether the market was expecting it, the move to the upside that we saw in the market looks to me like a bit of a misnomer. It looks like a bit misleading. And if we see this here, look at the seasonality. Seasonality suggests that throughout December we do get that push to the upside, until slowing down somewhat in January, February, and right the way really through to April. So I'm not sure whether we are 100% ready to move lower just yet. And I think that, back to Alexis's point about the news being reactive, I wonder whether that Fed meeting that we have next week, I believe it's on Wednesday, will be the driver that sees that the markets come down, or whether we actually do wait until the new year and then we see the markets come down. Either way, I think the data is suggesting that we are going to be headed lower from these levels. I'd want to see this COT data pick up on the sell side again. But the buying line here does suggest that the bulls are losing confidence in the rally. So the Nasdaq's what I'm focusing on, mate, and I quite like where we are for a potential short.
Cheers. That'll certainly have some repercussions throughout the entire market. If we see a decent pullback in the Nasdaq, the entire world will certainly know about that reasonably quickly.
Yeah,
Thank you very
it's
much.
the one. It's the one that everybody's been going. It's the confident one, isn't it? It's the one. The one that sort of, forget gold, forget Bitcoin as your hedge against inflation. The Nasdaq is the where everybody's going. I mean, it's just. I don't know. This is markets, isn't it? They continue to surprise us, and this is why we always got to be on our mettle.
So if Facebook's changed its name to Meta, does that mean the fangs have become the mangs?
Don't know. I quite like that though. Let's go with it.
Cheers, Ash. Thank you very much. Thanks for your input.